देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So we will continue the prayers of Queen Kunti. Last few prayers are left. Yesterday we discussed the verse Ata Vishvesha Vishvatman Vishwamurte Swakeshu me Snekapasham Imam Chindi Dridam Pandushu Vrishnishu. So Queen Kunti prayed that please cut my strong bonds of affection. Snekapasham Imam Chindi Dridam. Dridam means strong. Please cut my strong bonds of affection for my relatives, the Pandavas and the Yadavas. So we discussed the purport yesterday. I'll go ahead. So when Queen Kunti offered this particular prayer, Krishna asked a question. You are saying that you want me to cut the different bondage of affection towards Pandavas and Yadavas. Are you seeking Brahman realization? Are you seeking Brahman realization? Is it that because you are just wanting to cut off all the relations, it seems that you just want to merge into Brahman, or do you want liberation? So expecting that Krishna may ask this question, then Queen Kunti offers the next prayer. This is a very important prayer. Tvayi me ananya vishaya matir madhupate sakrit ratim udvahata dadda gange vaugamudanvati. So Queen Kunti says, let my mind with attention fixed on no other object, ananya vishaya, and repeatedly carry its affection towards you. Repeatedly, let my mind with one pointed attention repeatedly carry its affection towards you. And O chief of the Madhu dynasty, Madhupati, O chief of the Madhu dynasty, just as the Ganges carries a full stream of water towards the ocean, Ratim Udvakatad Adda Gange Vaugam Udanvati. Just like Ganges goes towards the ocean, similarly, I want to undivided attention. Let my mind be without any attention towards any other object. Repeatedly carry its affection towards you. Like yesterday during Ekadashi, we were having a small japa session in the afternoon. Little bit kirtan and japa, some talks were we had in the temple. So there was a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita where like Mahaprabhu was asked that who is a Vaishnava? Mahaprabhu says that the best Vaishnava is one who constantly chants the holy name. Nirantara Krishna Nama. He uses the word Nirantara, constantly. In that purport, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he gives different meanings of the word Nirantara, different meanings of the word Antara. Or in other words, he says that like, what are the obstacles which a person will encounter in the course of chanting the holy names continuously without any interruption. So he gives different meanings of the word Antara, some 4 or 5 meanings. I don't remember all the meanings, but some of the meanings he says that, say, if the body is one interruption, like because body gives different demands and different times of the day. Sometimes the body forces a person to be sleepy or drowsy. The body actually demands certain food. Body demands that just walk and chant. So in that sense, because of the material body, that acts as an obstacle for chanting the holy name continuously. And another meaning of the word Antara is the different atheistic ideas. Different atheistic ideas, it can be considering the deity form of the Lord to be material, or it could be considering the holy name to be material, or like various other ideas. Like many times, like one of the main distraction while chanting is that although we may be wide awake, but at the back of our mind, different like ideas and different thoughts keep coming. They may not be atheistic, but then different ideas or different thoughts of doing particular thing or like that, they keep coming. So because of the different ideas, one may not be able to chant continuously. And then another meaning of the word Antara is that the material body acts as an obstacle, and then the different atheistic ideas. And then he says that Antara can also mean money. Like when a person is living in this world, in order to maintain oneself, like one has to earn money, one has to do, and then there's so many activities in relation to that. So in that sense, they also, because of that, we are not able to chant the holy name continuously. And then another meaning of the word Antara is that different say relationships in relation with the body. Different relationships, sometimes, many times during chanting, like what that person told or what that person is feeling about me. So many of those thoughts keep coming. So in that sense, there are different obstacles for chanting constantly. And of course, in the modern day, obstacles are actually our using the different gadgets. Because when we are constantly with the gadgets, they also actually act as an obstacle for chanting the holy name continuously. So here Queen Kunti is offering a prayer. She wants her mind to be focused on Krishna without any interruption. Tvayi me ananya vishaya. Just like Ganges flows towards the ocean. So here Queen Kunti is clearly mentioning that I do not seek Brahman realization. What I desire is that let my mind be focused on you constantly. Without any obstacle, let it udvahatat, that means like ratim udvahatat adda. Like Ganges flows towards the ocean strongly. So similarly, the mind should not think of anything else. Ananya Vishaya. Your devotees are non-different from you, and thus without affection for them, affection for you cannot take place. So Queen Kunti makes clear, it is not, when I mentioned that Sneha Pasham Imam Chandi, Dam Pandushu Vrishnishu, please cut off my affection towards the Pandavas and Yadavas. It is not that, I did not mean that please cut off my affection towards your devotees. Because the best way to actually develop affection towards you is by developing affection towards the devotees. Your devotees are non-different from you. So therefore, without developing affection towards your devotees, how can a person develop affection towards you? So I know this very well. But when I meant Sneha Pasham Imam Chandi, Dridam Pandushu Vrishnishu, what I meant was that please cut off my bodily affection towards the Pandavas and Vrishnis. Let my mind have attraction for no one except you and your devotees. I prayed to cut affectionate bonds with the Pandavas and Yadavas, which are based on the bodily relation. It is not cutting the affectionate relation with you. I want to cut that affection which causes bondage, which is based on the bodily relation. So you see that even in our relationship with the devotees, in every relation, especially when we are living in the material world, in every relation there is a spiritual aspect and there is a material aspect. There is an aspect based on the, say, bodily identity or on a bodily relation. In the case of the Kunti, the relationship with the Pandavas and Yadavas were based on the Pandavas are her sons and Yadavas are her relatives from the parental side. Similarly, if we see in our relation with the devotees also, there is a spiritual relation, there is a spiritual part is there, and on a practical level, there is also a material identity is also there. We cannot deny that. Like for example, suppose the temple president is invited for a prasadam to somebody's house and the temple president goes. So there is a Vaishnava relation from the point of view of Vaishnava, that dadati pratigrihnati bhunkte bhojayate chaiva. That as one of the Vaishnava principle is that you accept you accept gifts from another Vaishnava and also give some gifts in return. You accept prasadam from another Vaishnava and also give some prasadam in return. So there is a Vaishnava relation. So therefore, devotee may accept that invitation and may go to take prasadam. But on a practical level, there may also be a material relation, which is the reality. Like there may be this thing. Okay, maybe if I go to his house, maybe he will also support the temple. He will also support the temple by giving donation. So that relationship is there. There's a reality of the practical world. Like for example, we find even Yudhishthira Maharaj, when he lost the gambling match, when he came to the forest, then he then so many Brahmanas and Brahmachari students, they also followed the Pandavas. They came along with them and they said that we don't want to be the citizens of Duryodhan. We want to be with you. But Yudhishthira Maharaj felt bad that how can I maintain all of you? I don't have any capacity to maintain you. I don't have any resource with me. But then the Brahmanas said, but then we will just eat fruits and roots in the forest. You don't have to worry about maintaining us. But Yudhishthira Maharaj felt that, but then I need to maintain because the Brahmanas have to be maintained by the Kshatriyas. And then he speaks very profound verses in that section of the Mahabharata, Vanaparva, I think, first 2 chapters there. He speaks profound verses about the principles of guest reception, Atiti Satkar. So then Yudhishthira Maharaj was advised by Rishi, okay, if you want to maintain them, you worship the sun god and then pray to him, and then he can give you the Akshay Patra, and then that Akshay Patra you can serve these Brahmanas. Then there's a description of how he worshipped the sun god, he got the Akshay Patra. So Yudhishthira Maharaj, he served the Brahmanas, but there is also on a practical, there is also a motivation behind that serving, because if all these Brahmanas will remain loyal to me. And it is not some motivation based on selfishness, it is a motivation based on completely selflessness, but still there is an agenda that because in future Yudhishthira Maharaj will become the king and he wants the citizens to be loyal to him, and the best way to make them loyal is that by feeding them, by maintaining them. So therefore in every relation there will be some material part is there. Some material part is there. That is the part of the material world, because when we are having a certain identity, so there will be there will be one aspect of the relationship which is on a bodily platform. Similarly, Kunti's relationship with the Pandavas, there is one aspect of the relationship which is because they are Pandavas are her sons and Yadavas are her relatives. But the other aspect of the relationship, the Pandavas are the devotees of Krishna and Yadavas are the devotees of Krishna. So when Queen Kunti is saying that Sneha Pasham imam chindi dridam pandushu vrishnishu, what she is meaning is that please cut off that material aspect of that relationship. Please cut off that material aspect of relationship with the Pandavas and the Yadavas. But otherwise, she definitely knows that the best way to serve the Lord is to actually by being attached to the devotees. In fact, Chaitanya Charitam Mahaprabhu says that that sadhu sangha is the way by which a person begins his bhakti. He develops a shraddha. And then when the bhakti matures, when a person gets the Krishna prema, even in that stage, that sadhu sangha is the most important anga of bhakti. So how can Queen Kunti offer a prayer that please cut off my relationship with the devotees? She cannot offer that prayer. She is actually meaning that please cut off my material aspect of the relationship. So, and then another point is that, say, this particular verse, in one class, is known as Radhanath Maharaj mentioned, Matir Madhupati. Madhupati here means, of course, a descendant of the Madhu dynasty or the master of the Madhu dynasty. But another simple meaning is that a master of sweetness, Madhupati. So Maharaj mentioned that Queen Kunti's whole life was filled with the difficulties. If you have to understand that, you have to see the whole, in the Mahabharata, wherever incidents, how Queen Kunti suffered in so many instances. I'll briefly mention. But although she had a whole life of difficulties, but she's calling Krishna as the master of sweetness. To make that statement, it requires like what degree of faith one should have on Krishna. Although her whole life was filled with bitterness, but she is calling Krishna as the master of sweetness. So this shows actually Kunti's actually trust in Krishna. Trust in Krishna. And then Ratim Utvaghatat Adda Gange Vogam Udanvati. Yeah. Before I come to that particular phrase, another significant point in relation to this particular verse is that if you see the same verse, the same meaning in one sense, not exactly the same words, but the same prayer which Queen Kunti is offering here, the same prayer was offered by Vritrasur in the 6th canto. Aham hare tava padaika mulo dasanu daso bhavitasmi bhuyaha manasmaretasu pater gunamste grihita vak karma karotu kayaha. So Vritrasur offers the prayer that Vritrasur is offering that. You have started a screen. Okay, then I'll stop the video. So Vritrasur is also, in one sense, in essence, he is offering the same prayer. That I just want to be the servant of your devotees. Manas maretasu pater gunamste grihita vak karma karotu kayaha. May my mind be engaged in thinking of you. Let my words be always engaged in glorifying you. Let my body be engaged in serving you. So that was the prayer of actually Vritrasur. If you want me to start the screen, and then I can start. If you want me to start the video, I can start. Otherwise, we want to start share the. Okay. So Vritrasur also offered the same prayer that let my body, mind, and words be engaged in serving you. So this is the same prayer of Queen Kunti. So, but if you put on one side the picture of Kunti and another side picture of Vritrasur, and then you say that whatever the see the commonalities and the similarity differences between these two pictures. List out the commonalities, list out the list out the differences between the picture. Then you will find that there is not even a single similarity between Kunti and Vritrasur. There is not even a single commonality, because Vritrasur's description in the Bhagavatam, Vritrasur was born as a demon. He had such a huge body, and he had a coppery hair, and he was like trampling upon the Devata, such a huge body. And Kunti was a simple lady, simple widow lady, the mother of 5 children. There is a difference in appearance. They are completely different, but in their heart, the substance of their devotion, they both are actually, they have the same substance of devotion. So therefore, Bhagavatam is actually teaching us to go beyond the externals and to focus on the substance of devotion. So therefore, we find, say for example, one class Raghunath Swami Maharaj mentioned, Raghunath Das Goswami and Bhima, both are actually Mahabhagavad devotees. Both had the same substance of devotion. Raghunath Das Goswami would drink a few drops of buttermilk once in few days, like that. We have heard about the austerities performed by Raghunath Das Goswami in Jagannath Puri. And in the case of Bhima, Kunti had to give one portion to Bhima and the remaining all portions to actually the other Pandavas. So Bhima had that capacity, but both of their substance of devotion is same. So therefore, we see that that there are diversities on the platform of pure devotion, and there are diversities on the platform of rebelling against Krishna. So diversity will always be there. The substance of devotion is same, but both had their uniqueness, Vritrasur and Kunti. So, and also in this particular verse that Twaime Ananya Vishaya Matir Madhupate Sakratya. I mentioned that Kunti is addressing Krishna by the word Madhupati, master of sweetness. Similarly, Arjuna in the 15th chapter of the first canto, Arjuna says that or that verse that Deshakalartha yuktani hrittapo pashamani cha haranti smaratas chittam govinda abhihitani me. When Arjuna was defeated by infidel cowherdmen, but Arjuna started remembering the instructions of Krishna. Started remembering those instructions of Bhagavad Gita which are applicable in all time, place and circumstances. So then Arjuna, in that verse, Arjuna addresses Krishna by the word Govinda, and Govinda means the supreme personality of pleasure. When Arjuna experienced the greatest insult, being defeated by some infidel cowherdman, but still Arjuna is addressing Krishna by the word supreme personality of pleasure. And coming to this particular Ganges analogy, that Ratim Udvakhatat Adda Gange Vauga Mudanvati, just like the Ganges flows towards the ocean, let my mind flow towards the ocean. So the meaning here is that the point is, when the Ganges flows towards the ocean, a river does not hold any of its water back. The river offers all its water into the flow. A river offers all its water into the ocean. So just like a Ganges does not hold any of its water back, so similarly, a devotee does not hold anything back. Okay, I will offer something to Krishna, but I will keep something for myself. A devotee does not hold anything back. He offers the entire life, the whole heart is completely offered to Krishna. Of course, even when a devotee keeps something for maintaining his body, but ultimately, because in the case of a pure devotee, that he uses the body also in engage service of Krishna. But the analogy here is that just like a Ganges does not hold anything back, similarly a devotee does not holds nothing back. And another part of the Ganges analogy is that the Ganges, although there may be different obstacles in the course of the Ganges meeting the ocean, but ultimately none of the obstacles holds the Ganges. None of the obstacles can hold the Ganges in its flow towards the ocean. So similarly, that nothing can hold a devotee back. And in fact, that is the characteristic of pure devotion, that apratihata, that means like without any interruption. Without any interruption. So the nothing holds the devotee back. That is the aspect of apratihata, without interruption. And a devotee holds nothing back. That is the aspect of ahaituki. That means like he offers everything to the Lord. So in that sense, Queen Kunti is offering this beautiful prayer. So we come to the last prayer. Shri Krishna Krishna Saka Rishabhavani Drig Rajanya Vamshadakhanana Pavarga Virya Govinda Godvija Surarti Haravatara Yogeshwara Kila Guru Bhagavan Namaste. So here, in this last prayer, Queen Kunti is saying that she is just glorifying Krishna. O Krishna, O friend of Arjuna, O best of the Yadavas, and O destroyer of the kings who harmed the earth, O Lord of undiminished strength. Akila Guru, O Guru of all people, I offer respects to you. ultimately, Queen Kunti, although she had earlier she said that she wanted Krishna to stay back, but she concludes the prayer. She began the prayer by Namasye, I offer my obeisances. Namasye Purusham Tvadyam Ishwaram Prakrite Param. And she concludes the prayer also by saying that Namaste. So that means at the end of the prayer, she is not asking for something, or whatever she asked is, she said that let me simply develop attraction unto you, and then she simply glorifies all the qualities of Krishna. So therefore, that this is a very profound prayers of Queen Kunti. So I'll just see what Prabhupada says in the purport. Yeah, I already mentioned that point in the previous verse. Prabhupada says that Kunti's affection for the Pandavas and Vrishnis is not out of range of devotional service, because service to the Lord and service to devotees are identical. Relationships of the soul established in relationship with super soul are factual relations. And then the 43rd verse, that's like a summary of the Krishna's glories are described by Queen Kunti. So, like, I'll just see, I'll mention some incidents from the Mahabharata in relation to Queen Kunti, so that we can appreciate her character a little more. Of course, this will be, there are so many incidents, but I'll just highlight few incidents, so just so that we can appreciate Queen Kunti. So in the Bhagavatam, what we find here is that in the Bhagavatam, Queen Kunti's devotion towards Krishna, only that is highlighted in the Bhagavatam. Especially her heart's feelings towards Krishna, that's what we find. But as I mentioned, these Queen Kunti's prayers are like the sweet rice, but in order to make the sweet rice, there is so much of effort which goes in the background. Where so many people are involved. Just to produce the rice, 3 months or 4 months are involved. Like, just make the sweet rice, so many people are involved. Even the demigods are involved, because Indra has to give rain for the growing the rice. So in that sense, sometimes it is easy to relish the sweet rice, but do we also think about do we also contemplate, like, what are the efforts which were involved in actually in making that sweet rice? In order for Queen Kunti to offer these prayers, what all she went through during her life, because so many difficult circumstances, she remained faithful to Krishna, and then finally the entire realizations of going through different situations in her life, that has ultimately come off with these prayers. So therefore, it is also important to understand the full life of Queen Kunti. So I'll just mention few this thing. So we can see, of course, as I mentioned the other day also, like in Bhagavatam we find the devotional aspect of Queen Kunti, but in the Mahabharata we see how Queen Kunti was a expert mother, and how she was so liberal in empowering her daughter-in-law Draupadi, and so many other aspects, how she was good in upbringing of their children. So, for example, one episode, Eka Chakra, Pandavas were in the Eka Chakra, there was a Bakasur demon who would actually, every month, one person has to go from the one family along with so many eatables, and then they had to become the food for Bakasur. So the turn came for that particular Brahmana's house, and Kunti heard that a conversation of the family members, how they were in so much anxiety, who will go. And then Kunti told them that, no, don't worry, my son Bhima will go. My son Bhima will go. So, and then Kunti said that my son is not an ordinary man. I am not sending Bhima to become the meal for Bakasur. I have full confidence that my son will kill Bakasur. he has the ability, strength, and mantra shakti to accomplish this. So don't worry about this. So generally, like when we become, when we by becoming affectionate to a particular child or any, because of the affection and relationship with a particular person, many times we may fail to understand the capacity of that person. We may, because of that affection, we may become overprotective for that person. Like nowadays, when the child goes to give an exam, the mother also does parikrama of the school during the exam time. The mother also goes to the, generally, like previously, see, when I was studying, or most of you when you are studying, it's not that parents are concerned about the children's education, but it's not that they were so much concerned. It's not that they were overprotective about the children coming along with the child for the exam and so many other things. So many times, because of the overprotective nature, because of the affection, we may fail to actually, we may underestimate the capacity of the child, and we may not allow the child to perform the risk and grow in his life. But Queen Kunti, she had full confidence in Bhima's ability, and she said that my son Bhima will go and kill that Bakasur. So this is one aspect we can see how how Mother Kunti parenting, how we can learn from parenting. And then actually when Bhima went to Bakasur, at that time, like when the conversation was taking place, Yudhishthira Maharaj was not there in the house. And later Yudhishthira comes to the house, and Kunti told that I have sent Bhima to along with the footsteps of Bakasur, so that Bhima can kill Bakasur. Bhima can kill Bakasur. But Yudhishthira objected, how can you do this? Like Bhima is our main asset. We depend on Bhima's strength. In the future, we will have to fight a war with the Kauravas. And you have put Bhima into this difficulty. What will happen to us? You shouldn't have done like this. Sacrificing one's own sons for others is against Niti. You must have done this out of helplessness or confusion. I think you have made a wrong decision because of confusion or helplessness. You have sent Bhima, and then you must actually hear the Kunti's reply to Yudhishthira. And Kunti says that I have not done it out of ignorance, nor illusion, greed, or helplessness. Whatever decision I have taken, I have done it on the basis of intelligence. I know Bhima's capacity, and I love Bhima. I love Bhima. I have affection towards Bhima, and I also know his capacity. And then she says that I have not made this decision in on an emotional platform. Sometimes in an emotional platform, when we take a decision, we don't think properly. She says that I have taken the decision with intelligence after analysis, and I also have affection towards Bhima. So we see that like Kunti's decision-making ability. Many times, many so-called social reformers, they say that in Indian society, women were very much disempowered. Because they were disempowered, they cannot make any decision. And then they say that, oh, if you get modern education, then only the women will get the capacity to take the decision. Then only one will become empowered. But they don't read these sections of the Mahabharata. Just see Kunti's capacity to take a decision. That she wasn't afraid that because she knew that her son had the capability. So therefore, nowadays, like in the name of security and affection, many times we don't allow the children to actually take some risk and grow in their life. And then okay, this is one aspect of Kunti. And then another aspect of Kunti, this is before the Kurukshetra war, and Krishna comes as the peace messenger, and then the peace mission fails. That time Krishna comes to meet Kunti. Krishna comes to meet Kunti, and At that time, Kunti gives a message for Yudhishthir through Krishna. Kunti tells to Krishna, please go and give this message. What does Kunti say? He says that being a Kshatriya, Yudhishthir should not be talking about peace. He should be talking about war. And for protecting others, our ancestors have never backed out of war. Any of our ancestors have never backed out. I know that Yudhishthir has a great desire for peace, but being a Kshatriya, it is his responsibility to protect others. Therefore, explain this to my son. Now he has got the opportunity to fulfill his duty. And then and then Queen Kunti also tells to Krishna that you tell to Yudhishthir the story of this widow lady Vidula. And there was a lady called as Vidula, and she was a Kshatrani and she was a widow. Her husband was killed in a battle, and then her son gets defeated in the battle, and then her son returns home. And then while returning, that Vidula's son was thinking, my mother will shower a lot of affection and maybe mother will protect me because I have come back alive from the battle. With that hope, the son comes to meet Vidula. But then the Vidula actually encourages her son to go again, to go and fight the battle again. The Vidula tells that, what are you doing here? Why did you come from the battle? Why did you actually flee from the battle? Do you want to stay here like a eunuch? It's not. It would have been better that if you are not born from my womb, you should stand up again and fight against your enemies. A brave person dies only once, but cowards die at every moment of their lives. And seeing you in such a fearful condition, I think that you have not taken birth from my womb. So these were the words spoken by Vidula to her son. And this was being narrated by Kunti to Krishna and telling Krishna, go narrate this to Yudhishthir. And then, of course, Vidula's son, being encouraged by her mother, by his mother, and then he goes and then wins the battle. So in this way, we see that this aspect of Kunti, how being a mother of a Kshatriyas, how she actually she inspired the Kshatriya spirit. She inspired her sons to perform their duty as a Kshatriya. It's not that. That's why, as I mentioned the other day also, Kunti fed her sons with the devotion to Krishna, and also she also inspired her sons to perform their duty, perform their dharma. So therefore, it is important that we train our children both in devotion to Krishna and also in dharma. And then, another, so we see that generally when a woman becomes empowered, her feminine sensitivity is diminished. Many times, somebody becomes say head of an institution or head of a company. When a woman becomes head of a company, many times, sometimes the feminine aspect, they become very brutal in decision making. Sometimes their motherly aspect, the feminine aspect it becomes diminished. And when a woman becomes more emotional, then she doesn't have the, many times she doesn't display the capacity to make a decision. But if we see Kunti's character, she's a woman who with a refined sensitivity along with the decision taking ability. So that is why we can see there is a combination of buddhi and bhavana. She has that motherly aspect, the womanly, the feminine aspect. At the same time, she had the good decision taking ability. So both feminine and masculine abilities are integrated in her character. If a person has only one quality, in isolation from other qualities, then that becomes a source of trouble. But the Kunti's character is really amazing. This is another point which I want to mention. And then another thing in relation to Kunti is that, like when Pandu Maharaj died, like Madri and Kunti were the wives of Pandu Maharaj. So Madri told Kunti, like, I want to perform Sati because for me, like, committing Sati and entering the fire is easier than remaining alive and taking care of the children. Entering the fire is easier for me than taking care of 5 children. I will not be able to undergo the struggle. And even if I'm able to tolerate it, I should not be able to remain impartial, because I will show more favor toward my children Nakul and Sahadev, and I will not be able to show equal affection towards your sons. So it is better that I will enter Sati. But you are not like that, because you are impartial. You can act impartially and you have the ability to struggle. So therefore, you must live, and I shall enter Sati, and I shall commit Sati, and then I shall enter fire. So we see, of course, Sati in the tradition, it was performed, it was a completely voluntary thing in the Indian thing. But it was Sati somehow like completely written in whatever in the Western. If you go to the Western India, they have written so many literatures as if like Sati was forced upon the women. Sati was performed in like big numbers, etc. Sati was a voluntary thing. It's a different thing. But here what I want to highlight regarding Kunti is that Kunti's choice to struggle against the difficulties, that should be appreciated more than Madri's Madri's choice to commit Sati. In one sense, committing Sati and entering the fire, that shows her, okay, their loyalty towards the husband. But even more than Madri's loyalty towards her husband, what is to be appreciated is that Kunti's choice to remain alive and struggle against so many difficulties, and taking care of the 5 children, and dealing with all the 5 children in an impartial way. So therefore, Kunti deserves more glorification. And then another point about Kunti, as I mentioned, that Kunti addresses Krishna by the word Madhupati. Madhupati, if we compare Kunti with Kaushalya and Gandhari. So see, in the case of Kaushalya also, Kaushalya's son Ram went to the forest for 14 years. And Kunti's 5 sons Pandavas went away for 13 years. But at least in the case of Kaushalya, although Ram went to the forest and Lakshman also went to the forest, but 2 other brothers, Bharat and Shatrughna, they stayed back at Ayodhya. And at least Kaushalya could treat them as a sons. And Ayodhya, moreover, Ayodhya was not a sinful place. Ayodhya was not a sinful place, and Kaushalya still had 2 sons like Bharat and Shatrughna. Because Kaushalya realized that Bharat had qualities like Ram and Shatrughna had qualities like Lakshman. So in that, although Kaushalya felt separation from Ram, she had some solace in the presence of Bharat. But in the case, although 5 of you are far away, I still have 100 brothers of yours living here in Hastinapur. And I will be satisfied with your 100 brothers. Because the Kauravas, they were completely opposite to the Pandavas. And the Hastinapur was not like Ayodhya. Ayodhya was ruled by Bharat, but Hastinapur was ruled by Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan. So Kunti was not living in Ayodhya. Kunti was living in the midst of the politics of the Hastinapur. So therefore, Pandavas were in the forest, but Kunti was in Ravan's Lanka, because Hastinapur was ruled by Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra. So therefore, that even then, the patience showed by Kunti in the separation from her sons was a notch higher than that of Kaushalya. Another comparison between Kunti and Gandhari. Kunti and Gandhari, you see, Gandhari's life was also a life full of struggle. Her life was also full of struggle, in the sense that she blindfolded, she had a blind husband, she voluntarily blinded herself, and then she lost all her 100 sons. And Kunti's life was also filled with the struggle. But the difference is that Gandhari finally became angry with Krishna. She cursed Krishna. But in the case of Kunti, Kunti called Krishna as Madhupati, the master of sweetness. Because many times when a person goes through prolonged suffering, one becomes somewhat angry with the Lord, that one may even curse the Lord. Because there is an example of actually what's the message? Is the video and audio already? Now it is in 4G. So in that way, we see that Gandhari, ultimately she became angry with Krishna, but Kunti called Krishna as Madhupati. And then if we see in the Mahabharata itself, just like we have a flag of India, flag of America, flag of every country, similarly there is a flag of Mahabharata. In the very beginning of Mahabharata, Vyasadeva says that what is the purpose of Mahabharata? He gives 7 purposes. In the Mahabharata, I want to describe about the dynasties of Kuruvamsha. I want to describe the divinity of Krishna. I want to describe the farsightedness of Vidura, and the dharma of the Pandavas. And then he says that I want to describe in the Mahabharata the determination exhibited by Kunti. Determination exhibited by Kunti. So in that way, we can find actually various qualities exhibited by Kunti, and like that. How Kunti's confidence in Draupadi also. And when the Pandavas went to the forest, Kunti told that let Draupadi also go along with them. Kunti had confidence in Draupadi. There are many incidences. This is something I just want to share from Mahabharata. It shows how Kunti was was an expert mother. She had the decision-making ability. So in the Bhagavatam, we see here devotional side towards Krishna. So now I'll go ahead. I'll go to the remaining verses a little fast. So when Kunti offered these prayers, the Lord, whose greatness had been glorified with the sweet words of Kunti, smiled softly as if bewildered by prema. So Krishna smiled on hearing the prayers of Kunti. So then, tad badam iti upamantriya pravishya gajasahvayam sriyasya swapuram yasyan premna ragya nivaritah. So Krishna agreed with Kunti, and then Krishna entered back to Hastinapur. Krishna entered to Hastinapur, and then Krishna, wanting to leave for his city, Dwaraka, he took permission from Kunti and other women. Krishna basically just climbed down from the forest. He again just entered Hastinapur, and then he just took permission from Kunti. Please give me permission for me to go to Dwarka. But at that time, Yudhishthira Maharaj came to Krishna, please stay for some more days. When Yudhishthira Maharaj asked, please stay for some more days, and then Krishna decided to actually stay back. So this indicates that how Krishna was completely controlled by the love of the king. So Prabhupada writes in the purport that no one could make Krishna stay at Hastinapur when he decided to start for Dwaraka, but the simple request of Yudhishthira that the Lord remained there for a few days more was actually immediately effective. The 46th verse, Vyasadyair Ishwarehagyai Krishnenadbhuta karmana praboditopita pitihasair nabudyata shucharpitah. So Vyasa Adyair Ishwarehagyai. Although Yudhishthira was instructed through stories by Vyasa and other sages, Vyasa Adyai, that means Vyasa and other sages, and Ishware Hagyai Krishnena Adbhuta Karuna, who did not know the Lord's intention. And although even instructed by Krishna, Prabodhito api itihasair nabudyata shucharpitai. Yudhishthira was actually instructed through different stories by Vyasa and other sages, and Yudhishthira was instructed even by Krishna, but still Yudhishthira became overcome with grief, shucharpitah, and he could not understand those instructions. Na abudyata. He could not understand those instructions. So actually, what was happening is that Yudhishthira Maharaj, in fact, in the Mahabharata, like in the Bhagavatam, it is just explained in one verse. But if we read in the Mahabharata, there are few chapters of many hundreds of verses. Many hundreds of verses are there where how the different sages advised Yudhishthira. The Yudhishthira, like he was very reluctant to become the king. He started repenting that, oh, I am the cause of the so many killings which have happened. I am contaminated with sin, and I don't want to become the king. I am very greedy that just to become the king, I arranged this battle and killed so many people. I don't want to become the king. That's what like Yudhishthira decided. So at that time, Vyasadeva and so many sages, they instructed him through so many stories. Bhagavatam just mentions in one line, Vyasa Adyar Ishware Hagyar, through the stories by Vyasa and other sages. All these stories will be, if you want to know the detail, you can see in the Mahabharata. You can see in the Mahabharata. And then, but although, and not only the sages and Vyasadeva, but even Krishna actually instructed the Yudhishthira, but still that Yudhishthira was overcome with lamentation and he couldn't understand any of those instructions. So actually, Vishnu Chakrotipad, here the word used is that Krishnena Adbhuta Karmana. Although Yudhishthira was instructed by Krishna, who is an Adbhuta Karmana, who is a performer of wonderful activities, or who performs superhuman activities. So what is the superhuman activity which Krishna, why this Adbhuta Karmana phrase is used here? Because here in this, Krishna was unable to convince Yudhishthira. So what is so superhuman in this particular thing? He is not able to convince Yudhishthira. So the point here is that although Krishna was trying to convince Yudhishthira externally through different stories and instructions that you must become the king, But Krishna performed a superhuman activity as a super soul within the heart of Yudhishthir. Krishna convinced Yudhishthir, don't get convinced by my words. Because Krishna wanted Yudhishthira Maharaj to hear from Bhishma Dev. Krishna wanted to make Bhishma Dev glorious. Krishna wanted to spread the glories of Bhishma Dev. So therefore, Krishna actually convinced Yudhishthira Maharaj not to get convinced by his own words. So therefore, that's why the Adbhuta Karmana phrase is used. So therefore, Krishna wanted to glorify Bhishma Dev. By that, Krishna wanted to show to the world that Bhishma had more knowledge of Dharma than Vyasa and other sages, or even Krishna. But because Yudhishthira had even greater prema for Krishna than Bhishma, because of Yudhishthira's request, Krishna stayed back. So Chakravarti Pad says that, from this incident, we can understand that Bhishma had more knowledge than Vyasa and other sages. So Vyasa and the sages, they are always involved in actually scriptures, teaching the scriptures to others. But Bhishma was actually involved in the managing the kingdom. But the verse says that, but Bhishma had more knowledge than Vyasa and other sages. Just like somebody who is actually involved in the stock market, who is actually business in stock market. But suppose somebody else who is a doctor, or suppose somebody else who is a brahmachari in the temple. But if he has more knowledge about the stock market and all the ups and downs, then it will be completely surprising, isn't it? If he has more knowledge than the person who is all the time involved in the stock market, then it will be a surprising thing. How can this person who is staying in the temple, how does he know more about stock market? But I am actually all the time involved, I am doing the business in stock market. It will be surprising. So similarly here, in one sense, Bhishma was actually involved in, was a Kshatriya, he was actually managing the kingdom. But Bhishma had more knowledge than Vyasa and other sages. So Krishna wanted to announce this to the world, show this to the world. And also, but in the case of, in the love for Krishna, Yudhishthira had even greater prema for Krishna than Bhishma. That's another point he says. So therefore, Krishna caused this loss of judgment in Yudhishthira Maharaj. So here we can see one point that there are three levels. One is the words of the Lord, will of the Lord, another is the whim of the Lord. So words of the Lord can be in two ways. One is the direct words spoken by the Supreme Lord, or the words of the Lord which are spoken in the Shastra. The Shastra is the words of the Lord. So, when we read the Shastra, it is easy to follow the words of the Lord which are described in the Shastra. It is not so difficult. And once you open the book, you can read the words of the Lord, and then once you close the book, the words disappear, and the book actually does not follow up with the person. No, book does not keep following up that you read me, and are you following this particular instruction mentioned in the book? The book does not do follow up with the person. In one sense, following the words of the Lord given in the Shastra, in the sense it is there is no difficulty involved, in the sense that there is no person who is following up you. Are you following or not? And also understanding the words mentioned in the Shastra is actually sometimes it is easy also. But another is that will of the Lord. Following the will of the Lord or following the will of the devotee, sometimes it can be more difficult, Because in the case of the devotee, they keep following up. Oh, are you doing this? Is this particular project done? And many times we may have to adjust our ways and our ways of working according to the will of the guru or the will of the superior devotees. Many times we have to change our mindset. And normally the will of a person is expressed through the words of the person. Like what I desire, I express through the words. I want you to do this. But sometimes, although the Lord or the devotees, they may express certain words, but the will of the Lord may be completely different from the words they have spoken. So that is some extraordinary circumstances. Like for example, in this particular circumstance, Krishna was speaking to Yudhishthir by telling different stories. No, you must become the king. Yeah, therefore, give up this depression, give up this anxiety, become the king. So that they were the words spoken by Krishna. But what was the will of Krishna? Don't get convinced by my words. Don't actually get convinced by my words and continue to be depressed, continue to be in anxiety. That was the will of Krishna. So generally the words of the Lord and the will of the Lord are same. But in certain circumstances, the words of the Lord and the will of the Lord may be different. Will of the Lord may be exactly opposite to the words spoken by the Lord. When the gopis came to meet Krishna in the middle of the forest, if you read the 29th chapter, 10th canto, Krishna tells the gopis that you must go back. And then he gives different reasons. He says that the highest duty of a wife to be in the house and you must serve the husband and children. You must go back. But although Krishna spoke those words, but Krishna willed that the gopis should stay in the forest. And the gopis, being the pure devotees of Krishna, they connected with the heart of Krishna, they connected with the heart's desire of Krishna, and they did not go back. On the other hand, Krishna spoke the same words to the wives of the Brahmanas also. The wives of the Brahmanas came with the different footsteps to meet Krishna in the forest. Krishna told the wives of the Brahmanas, you must go back and assist your husbands. But there, when Krishna spoke those words, Krishna meant that the wives of the Brahmanas should go back. Because Krishna felt that if these wives of the Brahmanas, if they stay with me in the forest, what will the common people will think? Some Brahmana ladies are staying with some like Vaishya boy. What will the common people think? Therefore, Krishna did not want to create a disruption in the society. Krishna wanted them to go back, and the wives of the Brahmanas connected there. In that case, the words of Krishna and the will of Krishna both were same, and the wives of the Brahmanas connected with and understood Krishna's desire through his words, and then they went back. Or Gaur Krishna, another example, Gaur Krishna Babaji Maharaj told Saraswati Thakur, do not go to Maya Nagari, that means do not go to Calcutta, do not make disciples. And one more instruction he gave, I forgot that. Do not make disciples, and one more thing he said. But Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur, if you see externally, he disobeyed all the three instructions. He went to Calcutta, he made the Bagh Bazar temple, and he established 64 Gaudiya Maths in different cities of India. And Saraswati Thakur, he made so many disciples. So, does that mean that Saraswati Thakur disobeyed Gaur Krishna Babaji Maharaj? So, externally speaking, Saraswati Thakur did not follow the words of Gaur Krishna Babaji Maharaj, but he definitely followed the will of Gaur Krishna Babaji Maharaj. when Gorakhpur Babaji Maharaj mentioned that do not go to Calcutta, do not go to Maya Nagari, but Saraswati Thakur, when this question was asked to Saraswati Thakur, how did you follow the instruction of your Guru Maharaj? Saraswati Thakur said that, now, I did not go to Maya Nagari because wherever I go, I stay only in Gaudiya Math. And Gaudiya Math, in which the Radha Krishna deities are there, and that is not part of the material world, it's part of the spiritual world. And then my Guru Maharaj told me not to make disciples. But you are saying that I made so many disciples. Saraswati Thakur said that I don't see my disciple as a disciple. I see the presence, I see them as the representative of my Guru Maharaj. I see my Guru Maharaj's presence in my disciples. So when Gaurakrishna Babaji Maharaj mentioned that do not make disciples, what he meant was that do not be attached to the identity of, okay, you are the deliverer and you will deliver other people, you will be the guru of others. But Saraswati Thakur did not make the disciples in the name of actually I am going to be the deliverer of everyone. He just considered himself to be the servant of his Guru. As a servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he actually made different disciples. So in that sense, Saraswati Thakur definitely followed the will of Gaurakrishna Babaji Maharaj, although externally it appears that he did not follow the words of Gaurakrishna Babaji Maharaj. So therefore, following the words of the Lord, and another is the following the will of the Lord. Normally the words and will are same, but sometimes the words will be different from the will of the Lord or the devotee. So at that time, depending on how much the devotee has a heart-to-heart connection with the spiritual master or the Supreme Lord, then he can actually understand the will and execute that will of the Lord. And then the third level is that following the whims of the Lord. Like sometimes the Lord demands something which may be absolutely whimsical. And even to actually follow that whimsical desire of the Lord or his representative, that requires a great surrender, that requires the highest surrender. And the example is the gopis of Vrindavan, when Krishna, that Krishna actually stole the garments of the gopis, and Krishna told the gopis to come out of the water to collect the garments. And if you read that whole pastime, it appears that Krishna is such a whimsical person. He is telling the gopis to come out of the water to collect the garments without covering their bodies. So it appears like it was like Krishna is a whimsical person, but the gopis actually performed that surrender to the whimsical desire of Krishna, and therefore they are considered to be the greatest devotees. And in that connection, in the purport in the 10th canto, 22nd chapter, Hridayanand Maharaj quotes the verse Asvishyava Padayata, that last verse of Sikshashtakam he quotes. Although in one sense Krishna is actually exploiting them, but the gopis surrendered to the Krishna. Another example how a devotee followed the whims of Krishna is Bali Maharaj surrendered to Vamana Dev. Like Bali Maharaj gave all his possessions in the first two steps, and then the third step he offered himself. But even after that, Vamana Dev bound Bali Maharaj with the Varuna Pasha. This may appear completely whimsical. The person has given everything in charity. Nothing is left with him. He offered himself, and then he is arrested by Vamana Dev. But still, Bali Maharaj makes that statement, Pumsam Shlagyatamam Manye Dandam Arhattam Arpitam Yamna Mata Pita Brata Suhrudas Chadishantihi. That I consider the punishment given by you to be a greater than the so-called benedictions offered by the different guardians. Therefore, Bali Maharaj surrendered to the apparent whimsical like a punishment of Vamana Dev. So in that way, we see this example. So I'll just quickly conclude this chapter and then I will take up some questions. So then Yudhishthira Maharaj, thinking of the killing of his friends, he was overcome with the bewilderment arising from affection. And then due to material thinking, then Yudhishthira Maharaj spoke. Although Yudhishthira Maharaj was convinced by so many sages, but Yudhishthira Maharaj was not getting convinced. And Yudhishthira Maharaj, this verse describes Yudhishthira's loss of discrimination. Although Yudhishthira Maharaj was actually spiritual, but he thought of himself as materially. That means he felt that, oh, I am responsible for so many actually, because I am responsible for so many killing which have taken place. Aho me pashyata jnanam hridi rudam duratmanah. Look at the ignorance which has spread over my evil heart. Just for my body, which is fit for the jackal's food, I have killed so many armies. Just to maintain my body, which is ultimately going to be the food for the dogs and jackals, I have killed so many akshauhinis. And then Bala Dvija Suhrun Mitra Pitru Bratru Guru Druha Namesyan Nirayan Moksho Kyapi Varsha Yuta Yutai. Because I have killed children, brahmanas, relatives, friends, paternal uncles, I cannot be free from the hellish punishments for 10,000 years. So you see, Arjuna lamented before the battle, showing his reluctance to fight the battle. And Yudhishthira is lamenting after the battle, showing his reluctance to become the king. Arjuna exhibited his soft-heartedness at the beginning of the battle, and Bhima exhibited his soft-heartedness when Krishna was going as a peace messenger. Bhima told Krishna that just ask for 5 villages. And Krishna was surprised to hear that from Bhima. And Krishna asked, like, are you afraid of the war? And Bhima said, but I'm not afraid of the war, but I want to avoid the bloodshed in the war. I'm aware of the consequences of the war, therefore I want to avoid the war, but I'm not afraid of the war. In one sense, Bhima also showed his soft-heartedness. I mean, Krishna went as a peace messenger, and Yudhishthira is exhibiting his soft-heartedness after the battle by saying that, oh, I don't want to become the king. I'm responsible for so many deaths. So if you see Yudhishthira Maharaj, he didn't have any selfish desire to fight the battle. Absolutely no selfish desire. But Yudhishthira, like generally when you perform an activity with a selfish desire, then you become entangled. Takta karman yavidvamso yata kurvanti bharata kuriyad vidvam tata saktas chikirshur loka sangraham. The 3rd chapter, Krishna says that both the attached and the detached, both act in exactly in a similar way. But an attached person has a selfish desire to fulfill, but the detached person, he performs in the mood of Nishkama Karma Yoga. So Yudhishthira did not have a selfish desire. But Yudhishthira Maharaj, although he fought the battle as an instrument of Krishna, but he is thinking that, oh, I am responsible for the killing of so many people. So generally we find, like in the case of, like for example, Kamsa was intensely selfish. He killed the 6 sons for his own sake, just to protect him. But after the 7th child was born, when the 8th child was born, and then when he saw the form of Durga, then Kamsa begged forgiveness from Vasudeva and Devaki, because they have given birth to Durga, and Kamsa said that that please forgive me, but don't be sorry with me. After all, I am simply an instrument of your karma. I am simply an instrument of your karma, and like don't be angry towards me. Like Kamsa, although he actually, for his selfishness, he killed the 6 children, but he does not take responsibility for it. Rather, he justifies and uses the philosophy to tell Vasudeva and Devaki that I am an instrument of your karma. But here Yudhishthira Maharaj, although he was completely selfless, but he's thinking that I am responsible for so many killings which have taken place. So we can contrast between Yudhishthira and Kamsa. And then Yudhishthira says that there is no sin for the king who kills the enemy in a righteous war, protecting the citizens. But this rule does not apply to me, because it is not that I was fighting the war to get to protect the citizens, because Duryodhan was the king and he was already protecting the citizens nicely. I have actually killed so many people only out of a greed for a kingdom. So therefore, the rule that when a king kills the enemy in the righteous war for protecting the citizens, he will not incur sin. But this rule does not apply to me, because I fought the war to become the king. And then he says that I cannot counteract the injury I have inflicted upon so many people. Just like one cannot purify the muddy water by using mud, or just like one cannot purify what is contaminated with liquor by applying more liquor. So similarly, it is not possible to purify oneself of the killing he has committed by performance of animal sacrifices. I have performed so many killings, I cannot atone for by performing some Ashwamedha Yajna and other sacrifices. And just like one cannot purify the liquor part with actually by applying more liquor. So in this way, Yudhishthira was actually lamenting. So before we go to the next chapter, I will take up some questions. Just 1 minute, I'll just drink some water. I'm just coming in 1 minute. So let me see what are the questions. Tribanga Gopal Prabhu. Bhima was already married to Hidimbi. He had killed Hidimba. Still, he required parenting tips. Isn't there a age until which parents can oversee children's activities? No, it is not that Bhima. No, what I highlighted was that how Kunti had confidence in Bhima. What I highlighted was that it's not that Bhima required. Bhima was I told that how Kunti had confidence in Bhima's ability. Although Kunti had affection towards Bhima, but Kunti also had the confidence in Bhima that Bhima can kill Bakasur. So what I highlighted was that sometimes in showing affection to say children, or in the showing affection to somebody, then we don't actually allow that person to take some risk, and we don't understand the person's capacity to do something. And then when we don't, when we become overprotective, we don't allow that person to grow. So that was the point I mentioned. So I highlighted the Kuntis actually, how we can learn that how Kunti, she was not overprotective about the children. She had the decision-making ability, and she had confidence in Bhima. And yesterday, I think there was one question which was pending. Bhakti Vaibhav Prabhu had mentioned that like was Ashwatthama not punished after the second this Brahmastra? Okay, Bhagavatam does not mention, but definitely Mahabharata mentions the details of punishment given to Ashwatthama. Like I have to refer to the Mahabharata, but definitely Ashwatthama was punished. The details must be there in the Mahabharata. Bhagavatam does not talk about those details. Any other questions? Shall we go ahead? See, how he is to become Vyasa in 29 Chaturyuga and Saptarishi in the next Chaturyuga. See, in the Vedic culture, punishment, when you punish a person, it is not that a person is punished for the rest of eternity. A person is punished for his mistakes. The punishment is, and then when a person will become reformed, when a person realizes the mistake, when a person performs the proper atonement and when he gets reformed, then again he can occupy the suitable post. So therefore, this concept of punishment as an eternal punishment for the rest of eternity, that punishment is only there in the Abrahamic religion, hell for eternity or punishment for eternity. So therefore, because he committed as a Brahma Bandhu, he committed heinous acts, he was punished definitely. But it's not that, okay, he was just punished for a few years and then he was awarded a post. No, he was severely punished, and then later, because he comes from the Brahminical family, he had that inherent the ability to occupy a particular post. So therefore, in the future Yuga, he will become the Vyasa. But before that, he will be completely rectified of his whatever wrong attitude he exhibited. So I don't know the story. Ashwatthama received the mercy of Radharani in Barsana. I don't know. Okay. Vijay Krishna Prabhu, could you please tell what punishment Ashwatthama got after releasing the two Brahmastra? I have to refer it to Mahabharata. Maybe I will find out and then I will mention in the WhatsApp and that email loop. Yeah, definitely one has to be punished. We heard that dates etc. have number 18 in common. Is there any special significance of 18? I don't know in particular about 18. Yesterday, somebody sent a video about the numbers 1 to 9. That's an interesting video by some other person. He talks about why the 1 is written in a particular way, 2 is in a particular way, 3rd is in a particular way, 4 is in a particular way, like that. Of course, the Western people, they give some understanding. They say 3 means there are 3 angles in 3. In 9, you can see 9 angles, like that they give some understanding. But that explanation is not proper because the concept of angles came later. But he gives there's a 1 hour long video, but he gives a beautiful explanation how the numbers are there. Similarly, for 18, I don't know what is an explanation why the 18 number is there. Okay. So I'll just continue for another 25 minutes. At 12:40, I'll stop. And then if you have some other questions, then I will again take up. So we'll come to the 9th chapter. So passing away of Bhishma Dev, so very wonderful chapter. इतिबीत प्रजाद्रोहात् सर्वधर्म विवित्सय ततो विनाशनम प्रागाद् यत्र देवव्रतोपतत्. So being fearful because of having committed violence against the population, Yudhishthir dharma vivitsaya, desiring to examine all the dharmas, he went to Kurukshetra where Bhishma had fallen. Deva vratopat apatat. So and then Yudhishthira Maharaj is followed by the other Pandavas and the Brahmanas such as Vyasa and Daumya. So all these people followed behind Yudhishthira Maharaj. The chariots decorated with gold and fine horses. And Krishna along with Arjuna also followed behind in the chariot. And Yudhishthira was shining like a Kuvera. He was shining like the god of wealth Kuvera, accompanied by Guhyakas, guardians of his treasures. So that means like Krishna took the Pandavas well dressed in a royal fashion. Like, generally, when you go to meet somebody who is about to die, you wouldn't want to show off your opulences to the person who is about to die. Yeah, so when a person goes to some family function, marriage function, there people wear the best of the dresses and jewelry, etc. But like when a person has died or when a person is about to die, why would you go to actually show off your opulences by going in with a royal dress? Like Duryodhan had such a sadistic attitude. When the Pandavas were in the forest, Duryodhan actually he came to the forest and then like he was so like dissatisfied in Hastinapur, he wanted to take a sadistic pleasure by showing off his opulences and enjoyment in front of the Pandavas. But here Krishna told the Pandavas to dress themselves in a royal fashion and come along with them and go to meet Bhishma. Because Krishna knew the desire of Bhishma. Bhishma always desired that Pandava should become the king. So therefore, Krishna felt that if Bhishma sees the Pandavas in that particular, with the royal dress, Bhishma would be happy. Therefore, in order to please Bhishma, Krishna took the Pandavas like that. And then seeing Bhishma lying on the ground like a fallen Devata, Pandavas offered respects to him along with their followers and Krishna. Krishna also offered respects to Bhishma. So then, there the Brahmana sages, the sages of the heavenly planets, and the kings who were sages had gathered to see the best of the Bharata lineage. So we see it is not only the Pandavas were there, the sages were there, Vyasa and other sages, and there were many great sages from all over the universe had come. There were no WhatsApp communication or something, different WhatsApp groups. Somehow all these sages, they came to witness the passing away of Bhishma Dev. Parvata Muni, Narada Muni, Daumya Rishi, Badarayana. Badarayana means Shukdev Goswami, and Brihadashva, Bharadwaja Rishi, Renuka Sutta, that is Parashuram, Vasishta, Indra Pramada, Trita, Vitsmada, Asita, Kakshivan, Gautama, Atri, Kaushika, Sudarshana. I think Prabhupada in the purport, he gives a detailed purport giving some information about the different sages. And Anyecha Munayo Brahman, Brahmarata Dayo Amala, Shishyai Rupeta Ajagmu, Kashyapa Angirasadaya. And all these sages came along with their disciples, and as well as many other pure sages such as Shugadeva. Brahmarata refers to Shugadeva Goswami actually. Yeah, Shugadeva Goswami and Kashyapa and Brihaspati. All these people came along with their disciples. So once, like, I had a question. I asked, like here it's mentioned that Shukdev Goswami was present when when Bhishma spoke all these instructions to Yudhishthir. But later in the 19th chapter, it is mentioned that when Parishit Maharaj decided to fast until death, Shukdev Goswami came there, and the verse says that Shukdev Goswami was 16 years old. 16 years old. That means Parishit Maharaj, Shukdev Shukdev Goswami must have taken birth 16 years before. But Parishit Maharaj himself ruled for, I think, 60 years, if I don't mistake. He himself ruled for 60 years or something. And before that, Yudhishthira Maharaj ruled for 40-50 years. So that means Shukdev Goswami must have been there for at least for 90 years. Then how is the Bhagavatam describing that Shukdev Goswami is 16 years old? And also in the 10th canto, when Krishna went to meet Bahulashva and Shrutadev in Mithila, that time Krishna took many sages along with him. And the list of sages there, Shukdev Goswami's name is also mentioned. I mean, like Krishna was present at that time also. Then why does the Bhagavatam say that Shukdev Goswami was 16 years old when he spoke to Parishit Maharaj Srimad Bhagavatam? So the answer is that when it is said that Shukdev Goswami was 16 years old, it does not mean just literally 16. It means that he appeared like a 16-year-old, although he was much senior in age. And this is the implied meaning, and that is called as a Vyanjana Vritti. There are three types of meaning of the Sanskrit words: Mukhya Vritti, Lakshana Vritti, and Vyanjana Vritti. Vyanjana Vritti means the implied meaning. The implied meaning. So Vyanjana Vritti is, although this term may be little new to you, but we very often use Vyanjana Vritti even in our day-to-day dealings. Like suppose, say you are in Pune, say you are in Pune, Somwarpet. So you want to go to, say, ISKCON temple. You board the bus, and then you say that give me 2 camp. 2 camp do. When you say 2 camp, that means actually camp refers to a big area. Camp refers to a big area in which maybe say 500 buildings are there, and each building may be costing, say, maybe 70-80 lakh, say. So when you are saying 2 camp, that means, do you mean that give me all the 500 buildings in the camp area, and I will give you I will pay you 10 rupees. So does it literally make sense? Because one building costs 60 lakhs, and then there are 500 buildings in the camp area, and give me 2 camp means give me twice the amount of the buildings in the camp area for 10 rupees. So it literally does not make sense. But what is implied by the sentence, give me 2 camp, that means give me 2 bus tickets to reach the bus stand in the camp area. So that is the implied meaning of the sentence, give me 2 camp. And this is called as a Vyanjana Vritti. Vyanjana Vritti means the implied meaning or the suggestive meaning. So when the literal meaning does not make sense, give me 2 camp, it does not make sense. You say, give me 2 camp and you are saying 10 rupees, it does not make sense. So when the literal meaning does not make sense, then you have to resort to the other meanings like Lakshana Vritti and Gauna Vritti and Vyanjana Vritti. So therefore, when it is said that Shukdev Goswami was 16 years old, it does not make sense, because Shukdev Goswami was present when Krishna went to meet the Shrutadev and Bahulashva. Shukdev Goswami was present when Bhishma Dev spoke. So therefore, it means that Shukdev Goswami appeared like a 16-year-old boy. And that means what? That means Shukadeva Goswami, although he was a very old person, but he was beyond the influence of time, that he appeared like only a 16-year-old, although he was maybe 100-year-old, but he appeared like only a 16-year-old boy. That means he was beyond the influence of time. So that means he was beyond the influence of the material gunas, because time controls anything which is under the three modes of nature. Yes, because he was beyond the influence of time, that means he was beyond the influence of the material gunas. That means he was a liberated person. And that further implies what? That means he does not have the four defects of a conditioned soul. Brahma, Pramada, Karana, Patav, and Vipralipsa. And that further implies what? That whatever Shukadeva Goswami spoke to Parikshit Maharaj is authoritative and should not be doubted, because whatever he spoke, it is free from the four defects of a human being. So therefore, that Bhagavatam teaches us not only through directly, Bhagavatam teaches in three ways. Vedas teach a living entity very directly, like a master speaks to a servant. And Puranas teach a living entity like a friend speaks to another friend in an indirect way. And Kavyas speak to a living entity like a lover speaks to a beloved in a very indirect way. But the Bhagavatam adopts all the three methods. Sometimes it gives very direct teachings, sometimes very direct words, sometimes it speaks indirectly, sometimes in a little more indirect way. Like it adopts the mood of a Kavya, sometimes it adopts the mood of a Purana, or sometimes it adopts the mood of the Vedas. So therefore, that we have to, sometimes we literally quote, but then sometimes we have to see the context, and there are various examples in the Bhagavatam. I just gave one example here. There are various examples on the Bhagavatam, how some certain verses have to be taken. We have to see the indirect meaning, implied meaning. So that is why it is important to study the Shastra from the Guru, because many times we may just take the literal words and then we may get stuck to the literal words, whereas in that particular instance, Bhagavatam may be adopting the mood of a Kavya. In a particular instance, the Bhagavatam is having the mood of a Vedas, then you can literally take the word, because Vedas speak in a very direct way. But in certain verses, Bhagavatam may be adopting the mood of a Kavya, that means it will speak in an indirect way, like a lover speaks to a beloved, or a friend speaks to another friend. So here, there's something I came in regarding this verse. And then, Tan Sametan Mahabhagan, Upalabhya Vasuttama, Pujayam Asa Dharmagyo, Desha Kala Vibhagavit. Vasuttama, the best of the Vasus, Bhishma, who's endowed with great qualities, Mahabhagan, and Dharmagya, knowledgeable of Dharma, Desha Kala Vibhagavit, as applicable according to time, place, and circumstance. And seeing that all these sages had assembled there, what did he do? Pujayam Asa, he worshipped them. Pujayam Asa, he worshipped them. So here Prabhupada writes a brilliant purport about how Yudhishthira, the Bhishma Dev actually worshipped them according to the time, place, and circumstance. I'll read some of the points from Prabhupada's purport. 9th verse. So the symptom of a great Acharya is that he is expert in adjusting religious principles according to time and place. So Bhishma Dev, like normally when a guest comes, you are supposed to offer asana, and then you are supposed to welcome him and give some water for washing the feet, and give some arghya, madhuparka, like that in the traditional, the Vedic welcoming, give some for water for drinking, etc. But here Bhishma Dev was unable to perform any of this traditional welcome to all these great sages and Krishna and Pandavas, because he was lying in at the bed of the arrows. But Bhishma Dev was quite fit by the activities of his sound mind, and therefore he could utter sweet words with hearty expressions, and all of them were well received. All of them are well received. So therefore we see this one purport in 4th Canto, 22nd chapter, when the 4 Kumaras arrived in the assembly of the Prithu Maharaj. Prithu Maharaj welcomes them, and then he says that yeah, even a poor person's house which is visited by the great sadhus, such a poor person is more fortunate than the wealthy person's house, but which is not visited by the sadhus. Rather, the house of such a wealthy person in which the sadhus don't visit, such a house is like the sandalwood tree which is actually occupied by the envious serpents. So in that purport, in those verses, one purport Prabhupada says that how it is so easy to offer guest reception. If the guest comes, okay, you can offer some seat and welcome him, offer some padya, argya, etc. And then he says, if you cannot do that, at least one can do this. If you cannot do that, at least one can do this. And then he says, suppose if a person is so poor that if he does not have an asan, even an asan to offer to the guest, but at least he can come along with the family members and just bow down before him. And then Prabhupada says that in this way, even the poorest of the poor person can receive any guest in his house and please him with a sweet disposition and by speaking sweet words. Even if he does not have any facility, but still one can please, even the poorest of the poor person can receive the guest by speaking sweet words and offering obeisances. So here, so Bhishma Dev, he could only actually speak sweet words. He spoke sweet words with hearty expression and received all these stages. So you see that, but suppose if the same thing, suppose you are lying in the bedroom and then different, the superiors, some sadhus or different sannyasis, they come to your house. And if you simply keep lying in the house, then it is considered a disrespect. But if in the case of Bhishma Dev, he was unable to do any other thing, but therefore he simply offered actually what he could offer was that just speak some sweet words with a hearty expression. So in that way, he followed guest reception. Because that was the best capacity he could do. So somebody who can do with a better capacity, but he does very minimum, then that means he's not following dharma. So therefore, again, another point here is that when a particular, say, personality follows a particular dharma, we also have to see the time, place, and circumstance. There is the eternal principle and there is a contextual reality. So many times we have to separate the eternal principle from the context. In the particular context, a person might have applied the eternal principle in a particular way. Like for example, Prabhupada, like when he gave lectures in Iran, and when he gave lectures in Western countries, he might have spoken about Christianity and Islam in a particular way. Because most of the audience were from that particular religion. But the same Prabhupada, maybe in another context in India or in a private, this one he might have spoken, he might have given different thing. So sometimes we quote, oh, Prabhupada said like this, etc. But sometimes we fail to notice, oh, who were, where Prabhupada was speaking, who are the audience present there, from what background they were coming. And we don't see that, and because of that, we fail to separate the eternal principle from the context. So therefore, the acharyas and they act according to the time, place, and circumstance. That is why Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions in one place, when when a person when an acharya follows a particular principle according to a time, place, and circumstance, but when the followers of the acharya, without seeing the time, place, and circumstance, when they make that particular standard true for all times and all places and all circumstances, then that becomes the starting of the Appa Sampradaya. That becomes the starting of the Appa Sampradaya, when they fail to see that how they fail to distinguish between the eternal principle and the context. So yes, in relation to this Deshakala Patra, I'll just mention few more points. Like when Krishna says in the 4th chapter, Evam parampara praptam imam raja rishyo viduhu sa kale neha mahata yogo nashta parantapa. I gave this knowledge to Sun God Vivasan, but in due course of time the knowledge got lost. Therefore, I am again giving this knowledge to you. So you see that as circumstances and social considerations change over time, the need arises to re-explain the spirit of the lineage relevant to the time and circumstances. That which is essential in the message must be separated from that which is relative. And in delivering the principle, the details must be altered, and this is the task of the great souls, which Prabhupada mentions here, that the great Acharya is expert in adjusting according to time and place. So the mystery of the Guru Parampara is that while it suggests conformity to a lineage which is dating into antiquity, but at the same time, the spirit of Guru Parampara is that of non-conformity. Conformity means like following exactly. The Guru Parampara, it suggests conformity to the predecessors, conformity to the Parampara. At the same time, the spirit of Guru Parampara is that of non-conformity. Because becoming a member of the Guru Parampara, one conforms with the absolute truth, who is the supreme non-conformist. Who is the supreme non-conformist, who is absolutely independent, the supreme autocrat. Because Krishna does not always act in the same way in all circumstances. He is the supreme non-conformist. So when we become a member of the Guru Parampara, one conforms with the absolute truth, who is the supreme non-conformist. So therefore, to be in the Guru Parampara, one must sometimes leave what appears to be the lineage. And one must distinguish between the form and the substance of the tradition. And thus we find the most prominent members of the Guru Parampara are involved in the renovation of the tradition, revealing the truth in a way relevant to the time and circumstance, such that often those who are members in form only cannot appreciate them. So many times there are certain members of the Guru Parampara who only form the form, but there are others who are focused on the substance of the Guru Parampara. They may make some changes in order to give that substance to others. But those who are only focused on the form, they may not be able to appreciate the others who are making those changes. To recognize the reformers of the mission, then how do we recognize those members of the Guru Parampara who are actually making that adjustment? So for that, the practitioners must cultivate the quality of seeking the essence. When the practitioners cultivate the quality of being essence seekers, then they can recognize, okay, this person is not compromising with the principle, but is only compromising with the detail. So therefore, failure to do so involves a break from the tradition despite superficial adherence to the external symbols. So the spirit with which one initially embraces the lineage may over time become suppressed as the practitioner settles for pat answers to the problems of life, rather than taking up the challenge of applying those answers in progressive spiritual life. Thus, there is an ongoing need to resurrect the spirit of the teaching, not only in terms of revitalizing its message generation after generation, but also in our everyday life of spiritual practice. So I am just reading from the purport of Tripurari Maharaj. He is one of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, but he has written Gita commentary, but just one section I am just reading. He may not be officially in ISKCON, but some time back, Jayadev Maharaj also wrote a big article appreciating his Gita commentary, and this is from his purport. So therefore, that we see that there is an eternal principle, and there is a contextual reality. It's just a sophisticated language is used, but the same thing is conveyed in the Prabhupada's purport also. Essentially, Prabhupada also told there is a pastime of Prabhupada with Shrutakirti Prabhu. Shrutakirti Prabhu asked that how do we actually differentiate between a principle and a detail? And Prabhupada said that requires some intelligence. So when people actually like there are conservatives who become stubborn about the details, and when the conservatives when they become stubborn about the details, and when the liberals when they become liberal about the principles, then there will be deviation. The conservative, we should be conservative about the principles but not about the details, and we should be liberal about the details and not about the principles. But when the liberals become liberal about the principles, and when the conservatives when they become conservative about the details, then that creates a quarrel and suffocation, etc. So therefore we see that Bhishma, they welcomed all of them according to the time, place and circumstance. So then Bhishma, understanding the Krishna's powers, Krishnam cha tat prabhavagya asinam jagadishwaram hridistam pujayamasa mayaya patta vigraham. Although Krishna worshipped Bhishma, Krishna offered obeisances to Bhishma, but Bhishma, understanding Krishna's powers, he worshipped Krishna, who is the Lord of the universe, Jagadishwaram. Hridistam, who is situated within his heart, and who had come before Bhishma out of great mercy. Pujayam asa mayaya patta vigraham. Here the word mayaya refers to mercy, who had come to Bhishma out of great mercy. So then Bhishma's eyes were blinded by the tears of love. Then Bhishma spoke to the Pandavas sitting there, filled with humility and love. So these words spoken by Bhishma are so profound. Bhishma first speaks certain words to the Pandavas, and then we will see Bhishma Dev's prayers to Krishna. So I'll just take up this last verse and end. Aho kashtam aho nyayam yadyuyam dharma nandana jivitum narha taklishtam vipradharma achyutashraya. Having the shelter of the Brahmanas, Dharma and Krishna, you Pandavas should not live your life in suffering, because since that is dangerous and improper. Like you Pandavas always followed the dharmic principles. You always took shelter of Krishna, and you always respected the Brahmanas, and but still you went through so many difficulties. You don't deserve to go through so many difficulties. There is something improper. In fact, in the beginning of the Mahabharata, when Vyasadeva talks about the two kinds of trees. He said there are two trees. One is the tree which is made of actually unlimited anger. And this tree is actually, Duryodhana is the tree of unlimited anger. The trunk of this tree is Karna, Shakuni is the branch, Dushashan and others are the fruits and flowers, and Dhritarashtra is the root of this tree. And then he said there is another tree called as the tree of Yudhishthira, and this tree is the great tree of Dharma. And Arjuna is the trunk, Bhima is the branch, Nakula and Sakadeva the fruits and flowers. And what is the root of this tree? Vyasadeva says that Krishna, Vedas and the saintly people. And the same three words are used here. Because Vedas describe Dharma and Krishna is Achyuta. So here Bhishma Dev is telling the same thing. Vipra Dharma Achyutashraya. So we can see all the different scriptures are actually integrated. Vipra Dharma Achyutashraya. Because having followed Dharma, having respected the Brahmanas and having worshipped Krishna, you don't deserve to undergo so many difficulties. So we see that although Bhishma Dev himself is lying on the bed of the arrows, he is thinking about the suffering which the Pandavas underwent. So generally when a person is in the deathbed or suffering condition, one becomes so much self-conscious. But here Bhishma Dev is thinking about how the Pandavas went through so many difficulties. So this is the consciousness of Bhishma Dev. And we will continue from the next verse tomorrow. So if there are any few questions, I'll take up now. So tomorrow and day after tomorrow, we will take up this chapter. We may go a little fast. Yudhishthira ruled for 36 years. Yeah, somewhere it is mentioned like that. Shyam Leela Prabhu. Sometimes Badarayana refers to Shukadeva Goswami, sometimes to Vyasadeva. Okay. Are both correct? Does this word mean one who went towards north, one is born under the Badari tree? Badarayana, usually I remember always referring to Shukadeva Goswami, one was born under the Badari tree. But here Badarayana is referred for Vyasadeva. There can be slight, actually, if you have to carefully see the word. Many times in Sanskrit, actually, the father and the son, the name of the son is actually addressed in relation to the father. Like Kaunteya, Kunti is Kunti, then Kaunteya refers to the son of Kunti. We have to exactly see what the Sanskrit word used is, because just by adding one pratyaya, slight change happens, then it refers to the son of the particular person. So Badarayana refers to Shukadeva Goswami, but what is that exact word used for? .6. I'll have to go through the exact transcript. Sanskrit, why Badarayana? I'll have to find out why Vyasadeva is also called as Badarayana. Mukhya Vritti, Vyanjana Vritti, can you explain the other Vrittis? That will be a separate topic only. Mukhya Vritti itself, there are 3 types of Mukhya Vrittis are there. And then Vyanjana Vritti also, there are 3 subtypes of Vyanjana Vritti are there. And then there is a Lakshana Vritti. Lakshana Vritti is, Mukhya Vritti is the primary literal meaning. And Lakshana Vritti is the secondary meaning. Like for example, like when we say that a temple is on the road. So if you say literally, a temple cannot be on the road. No building can be on the road. The buildings are usually besides the road. So therefore, when we say temple is on the road, it implies that our temple is besides the road. So this is an example of because literal sentence does not make sense. A temple cannot be on the road. Therefore, we take to the Lakshana Vritti, the secondary meaning, which says that temple is besides the road. That's an example of Lakshana Vritti, and there is a Vyanjana, like a Vyanjana Vritti I explained. So there are subtopics, subtypes are there. These are explained in the purport of 10th Canto, 87th chapter, first verse. When the personified Vedas prayers, and Parishit Maharaj asks a question, how can the words of the Vedas describe the supreme absolute truth who is beyond the three gunas? So in that purport, these three types of ability to give meaning, Mukhya Vritti, Lakshana Vritti, these three meanings are explained in the purport. You may refer that. Yasa was called Badarayana. So I think since there are no questions, I will end the class. So tomorrow and day after, we'll go through a little fast. We will cover the Bhishma Dev's instruction to Yudhishthir, of the Bhishma Dev's prayers to Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. So thank you very much for your patient attention.